Hello and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Well, the hits just keep on coming with Solomon and Genfinity. We got another interview here with Sushil, who is the CEO of Drop. If you've not heard of Drop, well, you should definitely get to know them. They are developers on Hedera, and they actually have been recognized by the Federal Reserve. They're actually going to be working with Fed now. So they're pretty much a big deal. So we got an interview here that King Solomon did with Sushil, and it's just basically them talking about, Drop working with Hedera and their plans for the future. Real great interview. If you do want to see it, you can look on Hedera's X profile because they have reposted it, so feel free to check it out if you want to see the full thing. But I have bullet pointed the main things here that I would like to address, and so I will go through these and add my 2 cents in as we go along, okay? So let's get into this. So the first thing that Sushil says is that instant payments is going to take over the world, which I think we all can agree that we know that that's the case, right? Like, one of the things that's now been allowed with cryptocurrencies is real-time payments, right? We already know that XRP is something that's looking at cross-border transactions. Hedera are also doing cross-border transactions now with a stablecoin, right? They released a stablecoin studio not long ago. So this is definitely something that is going to be the future. And so Sushil's mentioning how instant payments, it's just going to revolutionize the whole industry, and that's where things are going. Okay. And he's basically saying how his company are looking at things like credit cards, right? He's saying that basically credit cards are not really going to so much be a thing anymore, or if they are, it's going to be a thing where they're done in a different way, because obviously with credit cards and debit cards, you probably don't know this, but when you make a debit card payment or a credit card payment, yes, the money does show as debit in your account immediately, but on the back end, the actual settlement of the transaction, that actually takes a few days. Now, I know in the UK, I can't speak for America, but I know in the UK, you actually have two balances when you go to an ATM, right? So you have your available balance and your account balance, right? So your account balance is what's currently in the account, right? But then your available balance is taking into account any payments that are earmarked to go out of your account. So let's just say, for example, I have a balance of $100, okay? But let's just say I'll make a debit card transaction for $10 on my card, right? So my account balance will still be shown as $100, but my available balance will be $90. Why? Well, the $10 is pending to go out of the account, right? So it's still got to settle that transaction. And so this is what they're talking about in terms of instant payments taking over, right? Because this is going to be able to actually settle the transaction there and then, right? Pretty much instantly. And so that's going to obviously make things a lot more seamless, a lot more convenient. It's real time, right? So obviously that's going to be better. So this is where the space is going, and I do completely agree with this. I think it's pretty inevitable that that is going to be what happens. It's probably going to take some time where it actually completely takes over, because these are legacy systems that are in place, but I think overall that is where we are heading. So Solomon then mentions that there's actually not been any innovation in the banking system or payment systems for actually over 50 years. And when you think about that, right, doesn't that just tell you that we're just due for new innovation to take over? 50 years is a long time, right? Especially as we're now in the internet age and how much things have changed in the last 50 years, how much we've evolved. And now obviously we've got these cryptocurrencies that are providing absolutely incredible use cases like HBAR, which, they can settle these transactions within seconds, right? So of course, this is the kind of way that technology is going to want to go. I think the thing is with this kind of stuff, it takes time because they've got to weave these new technologies into the old technologies, right? So they want it to be a frictionless integration, right? They don't want it to be like a hard, okay, we're using this and then we're just going to suddenly use this. They want to slowly adapt, right? So it doesn't seem like a big change to the legacy financial system. So yeah, I mean, when you think about it from that aspect, that's a long time to not have any kind of new adoption take over, any kind of new technology to update their systems, right? It just shows you how old and outdated these systems are, which is why cryptocurrencies are being looked at for these kind of use cases now, because we can dramatically change the financial system with these technologies. So very interesting point there that King Solomon made. And I think it's very apt in regards to him saying this, considering what Hedera can do and what Drop are looking to do. So, Sushil then said, like, when you offer low cost fees, you're now basically lowering the barrier for micropayments. So when we talk about micropayments, what we're essentially talking about smaller payments, right? So sometimes when you're thinking about cross-border payments, you're probably talking about like bigger payments that like institutions might make and stuff like that. But micropayments are like, you know, you're going into the shop and you're buying like a chocolate bar for a few cents. Like you might go and buy some chewing gum for like 30 cents and stuff like that. That's micropayments, the small type of payments, right? Because this is the thing, like when you think about when you go into a shop and use your card at times, a lot of them will say, well, you know, if you're not willing to spend over this much, then you have to pay like a transaction fee, right? But if you spend over like, let's say $5, then we won't charge you a transaction fee. So straight away, for you to just buy something small like 30 cents, they might say, oh, well, because you're spending under the limit and you're paying by card, we're now going to have to charge you 50 cents just for using the card terminal. And it's like, well, I've just paid more for the charge than I have for the actual chewing gum. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is where you can think in that type of way how what Drop are doing in terms of micropayments, how big of a deal this is, because now you're lowering that kind of charge, you're lowering that barrier to entry, right? Because some people might think, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to pay more for a charge than I am for the actual product that I want to buy. But this is all getting changed now, right? Because now you can do what you want and it will all go in real time. And there's going to be such low fees for this kind of thing that you can just do whatever you want to do. If you want to buy something for 10 cents, then you can. There's not going to be a fee that's going to make you feel like it's not worth doing the transaction, right? And so this is what he's talking about. He's saying you're now lowering the barrier for micropayments, because this is the example that Sushil made. He said, if you want to send a payment for $1, you know, it could cost up to like 53 cents, which means, you know, any transaction basically under $10, it's basically deemed as expensive, right? Because that's going to cost a lot of money to make the transaction happen, which essentially is exactly what I just said about being in a shop, right? It's just, if it comes to a certain thing where the price is too high, you're not going to really want to do it because you feel like you're paying more for the charge, or you're paying too much for the charge. So it doesn't really feel like it's worth doing the transaction at all, which is going to put people off, right? Which is now lowering that expectation. And now you can just make these payments as and when you desire, right? So Sushil basically believes, in, you know, the Drop team, they believe that revolutionizing micropayments can open up the digital market. So for things like gaming and streaming, right? So these are, again, things like micropayments. So if you think about just gaming, you know, like if you're playing like a game, let's just give a random example. Let's just say Call of Duty, for example. Maybe there's some skin that you want to buy, or this weapon that you want to buy for Call of Duty and that kind of thing. And it's a small payment, but because of the charges, it's like, well, adds on every time because of the charges. So you're like, oh, not only have I got to pay for this small fee, but then I've got to keep racking up the charges to do the fees because it's so small. But I mean, like, you know, quick small intervals keep getting released every week or every month or whatever, and it's just racking up my bills because I'm having to pay charges each and every time. You're lowering that barrier to entry, right? Streaming, if you want to just give someone a tip, your like favorite streamer, and you maybe just want to tip them $1 or something like that. Again, the charges might make you feel like, oh, I'm not going to do that because it's too much. Again, you're lowering that barrier to entry, right? So real great idea with this kind of stuff. And then subscriptions, which I did a video on this not long ago with regards to Drop and something that they've recently released. So I'll quickly just get into this further with the subscriptions, because this is a great point that he made. Like, you know, there's actually services now in this day and age that actually offer you a service to cancel subscriptions. That's how bad subscriptions are in this day and age. Like, people get subscribed to services and, you know, they was never meant to stay with them long term. And the next thing you know, they've got a whole load of packages that they never really wanted. So now there's actually services that will charge you and they'll say, hey, look, we'll look at all your services, the ones that you're not really using, and we'll just cancel them all for you. So you haven't got to deal with the hassle of going through it all. So that just shows you how much of an issue subscriptions are in this day and age, right? That's clearly a problem. And so he's basically saying, like, this is where what Drop are doing is going to open up for more chances of like innovation, because, for example, pay per use, which is the video that I did not long ago. So this is in regards to, like, for example, if you're a publisher, right? So if you're, for example, a newspaper publisher and you release a paper every day, well, let's just say you've got people who do like to read the newspaper, but they only maybe like to read the sports section, right? Well, this is actually going to break it down and say, hey, well, if you just like the sports section, you can actually read our sports section for 50 cents. Pay you 50 cents and you can just read the sports section, and that's fine. You don't have to buy the whole newspaper. And so they might think, oh, okay, cool, 50 cents, and I get to read exactly what I want. I haven't got to spend any additional money on something that I'm not going to read the rest of. I can just pay for exactly what I'm actually reading / using, right? that makes sense, right? Like, that's a real great idea. And a lot of people might be thinking, oh, well, you're going to be dropping down your money so much by doing that. No, because there's a lot of people who will think, I would rather not buy the newspaper than only buy it to read one part of the paper alone. So now you're getting the people who are just like casual readers, or let's just say there's an article that comes out that they're very much interested in, but they don't generally read the newspaper. They might really want to read this one article, and so they're willing to pay the money for that one article, right? They're like, you know what, a few cents for this one specific article, I'm so intrigued by it and I want to read it. Yeah, fair enough, because I don't mind, because this is something I want to read. I don't want to go through the whole newspaper. So again, it's them paying for what they want to use. And I think you're opening up to a bigger audience, right? And you're taking out the people who would potentially not buy the newspaper at all because they don't want to read the whole newspaper. They just want specific things, right? And so this is where Drop will shine with that kind of service, right? So to me, I think this is a great idea personally. I think this is going to be great for Hedera and HBAR. Really look forward to seeing how this goes. So on top of pay-per-use, the other thing that he mentioned was micro monetization and micro royalties. And an example of this is like, for example, music artists. I don't know if you know how this works, but with a music artist, if they put music out and stuff like that, they usually have to wait like 90 days before they can get paid. So they keep building up the money, building up the money, building up the money. They wait their 90 days and then they withdraw it all out in one go, that kind of thing. Well, in this kind of instance, so if you think about the Galaxy app, which is an app made for creators, which is built on Hedera, these guys can literally just withdraw the money ASAP. So like, even if they just have $1 sent to them, right, for some kind of service, they can have that dollar withdrew to their account that same day, like literally within that hour. Do you know what I mean? So it's like instant for them, right? So you're lowering those kind of waiting times. So this is just more efficient for people, right? It's more convenient. You're not having to keep waiting on a timescale to get paid. It's now instantaneous. This is obviously what people want. This is going to be way more convenient for people's lives. So I think this is really great. I really think people are going to like this kind of stuff. Like, it's going to be way better for the average person. And then we get talking to, again, the credit card industry. And this is where obviously Drop are trying to focus their services like micropayments and stuff like that. And this is where you get to hear how Hedera truly shines, right? So you've got here that most credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard, they do like 3.5k TPS, which is transactions per second. Hedera does 10k TPS. So he's basically saying, look, you know, Hedera can do more than enough transactions than what they need for their service. So they're happy working with Hedera. And again, that shows you the power of Hedera. Like, they're absolutely outdoing these legacy systems. And it makes sense because it's newer technology, right? So of course it's going to be better. And this is why it does make sense that in the future, these will take over, right? Like, slowly but surely, these systems will take over because it's just better. So inevitably, it's going to go in that way. So the last thing that he said, and this is in regards to a lot of people talking about the whole decentralization aspect and the whole purpose of crypto. And he's basically saying, look, the banks have to sponsor them, right? He's saying that they have to sponsor them for their business to work. So this is because some people didn't actually like it when they heard that Drop was getting recognized by the Federal Reserve, because they were basically saying the whole point of crypto is that it was for the people and that kind of thing. And they don't like the idea that these cryptos are now getting involved with the government and that kind of thing, which, look, I do understand what people are saying in that sense, but I've said this before. This is inevitable, guys. Like, it was never going to be a thing when crypto was just going to say 100% for the people. I think that's a very unrealistic mind frame to have. It was never going to stay that way. As things get more and more adopted and become bigger and bigger, they have to get regulated and stuff like that. It has to be a thing where the government gets involved. That's just the way it is. I don't think it was ever going to be a thing where crypto was just going to say 100% out of the hands of the government. There's just no way. Because as it evolves and it starts to get used by more and more people in their everyday lives, well, it's being used by then institutions as well, right? And so as it's getting bigger, there's going to be some kind of level of control that the government are going to have and getting involved and making sure it's regulated and that kind of stuff. So to me personally, I don't really look at that as a big deal. I just think it was something that was inevitable. Like, I never thought it was going to be something that would just stay forever in the hands of the people. We already know how this stuff works, guys. The government get involved. They make sure they get a handle of it. and they make sure that they've got it to a situation where they're comfortable with, because that's how this world works, right? Like, it's not a thing where they were just going to let something come out, leave themselves completely powerless and just let this thing run free. That was never going to happen. Like, when you look at Bitcoin now, you've got BlackRock and all these other firms looking to do a Bitcoin spot ETF, right? That's now big institutions getting involved and getting, bigger supply of Bitcoin. Like, it just is what it is, guys. That's just how things work. Like, as stuff gets bigger adopted, big institutions get involved, governments get involved. That's just the natural course of this, but that doesn't mean this has to be a bad thing. So that was just something that he mentioned, but I personally don't think that that's that big a deal personally. I don't really look at it as much of an issue to me, so I don't really worry about that. The next thing that they just said is that basically the banks have to embrace the APIs before they can use them. So the banks have to embrace the APIs before Drop can start using them. So they reckon that they'll probably do RTP first, which is real-time payment. So it's looking like that's where they're going to be going before they get into doing like the micropayments and stuff like that. So that's the main points that I've got here. Overall, I think he gave some amazing information here, and I do generally agree with everything that he said. I really think he's made valid points, and I think exactly what he's saying really does make sense. And when I hear about the things that Drop are looking to do, I really think they're going to have a special place within the industry, because they're going into an untapped market. There's no one really looking at micropayments. Like, when you think at the moment, you're looking more like cross-border payments and that kind of thing, right? Bigger types of payments. So when you look at what Drop are doing and you're looking at the market that they're targeting, I don't really see anyone trying to tap into that market or trying to innovate on that market. And so Drop are kind of in their own lane at this point. They haven't really got much competition. So I think it should be straightforward for them. And the fact that they're using Hedera to do this, well, yeah, they've definitely got a good network to be doing this kind of use case. So I've really got a lot of confidence with Drop at the moment, and everything I've seen about them just looks good to me. So overall, real great interview here, and I'm definitely here for them to see where this goes. And again, this continues to show you how powerful Hedera really is. So that's the interview in a nutshell. Again, if you want to go and check it out, feel free. It's on Hedera's X profile. It is a great interview, so I definitely recommend you checking it out if you've got the time. But what do you guys think after everything you've just heard? Sushil talking about Hedera and Drop. Do you like the things that you've just heard? Is this the kind of service that you think that you might be interested in yourself? Do you think this is something that's going to be beneficial for HBAR's price? Or do you not really like anything that you've heard? Is there something here that really doesn't make you feel too comfortable? Maybe you don't like the idea of the government getting involved and working with this company. Or do you not just really think it's going to make much of a difference for HBAR's price overall? Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'd be interested to hear. Thank you very much for watching this. If you did like it, please remember to drop a comment, like, and subscribe. But until next time, take care.